This is Daniel from Ophidian I. You're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
Where are you guys at?
So I'm in Reykjavik in Iceland.
Right. So that's that's a big city over there, right?
Yeah, it's basically the only city.
Is it really?
It's like half of the population. Like Iceland is total like 350,000 people, and like roughly 200,000 are in Reykjavik.
That's funny.
So
my son went over there after college just to I guess they stayed in hostels and went around. He absolutely loved it.
Okay, nice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very easy country to maneuver around. You know, it only takes you like 10 hours to drive like a circle.
Oh, really?
Across the whole country. Yeah. So like but there's still like lots of stuff to see and stuff. So yeah, I imagine it's awesome to see.
What's the metal scene like over there? I mean, I saw that movie Black Metal. I think that was recorded over there a few years back.
Yeah.
Right? That was there.
Yeah. Totally.
What's the scene like over there? Is it pretty robust?
Yeah, I think it's starting to get pretty robust right about now, because like although there have been like metal bands going since, you know, since everywhere else, like mid 80s or something like that.
Right.
There was like a pretty booming death metal scene early 90s, just in conjunction with Entombed and all of what was happening over in Sweden.
Right.
So that was sort of like a foundation that everything else has been built upon. But there hasn't really been like a proper boom in metal until then, like 10 years ago, I'd say. Then like bands such as like Solstafir and Skálmöld and some other like bands started to get some proper recognition. There was a festival going here for a number of years, Eistnaflug, which garnered some attention as well. Which so a lot of industry folks came over, you know, and were exposed to a lot of the bands here. And in part due to that, like the black metal scene in Iceland, like got pretty heavily recognized for a while.
Right.
So like a lot of us other bands are riding on the coattails of that whole thing. So I'd say, like now we have like a lot of bands that are starting to be like pretty revered and like household names all over, and are like building upon, right, you know, their names and touring and stuff like that. So
that's pretty great.
But that's still like relatively recent for us, I'd say.
How has the pandemic affected you guys over there and the music scene? Has it been bad there as well, or did you guys escape some of it?
Well, it started pretty early on here because like, you know, that ski resort where like a number of cases were reported back in like in Austria, like a year and a half ago. A lot of Icelanders were there, like just skiing. Right. So they came back with COVID like pretty early. So like some restrictions were implemented, you know, pretty heavy ones for a while. Then like last summer was pretty good. We managed to have like a window there where like spots were basically open. The country was on lockdown, closed. The borders were closed. But like we were able to do shows and stuff like that. So that was a pretty good summer. But for the most part, though, it's been pretty similar to how it has been everywhere else in the world. Yeah, it's just not much going on at all, really. But you know, we can't really complain, I'd say, because like in terms of our population, we still haven't we weren't hit particularly bad.
Right.
Like for example, now like a large portion of the population has already been vaccinated, and like they're expecting everybody to be vaccinated like end of next month. So, and that's probably going to happen. At least the numbers are showing
awesome.
that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
We can get back to life. So let's talk about the band. For those not familiar with you guys, can you give us the 2-second elevator pitch?
Yeah.
2 second, not totally second. Not. Sorry, not second. Sentence.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Ophidian I is like first and foremost just a technical death metal band. So that's just the the starting point of it. Well, we've been like a band for a number of years, like upwards of 10 years, but went on hiatus after like the first album, and like went on to some other bands and doing some other stuff in music. Then came back together a few years ago and started working on this album. And we set like we set like a pretty set this bar high where we wanted to be like extremely technical, but still like rely on musicianship and the songwriting, like for the most part, like, and try to utilize those like technical aspects as ways to get those, you know, ideas, those songwriting skills and like further. Yeah. So yeah, and it's like with this album, like I think we managed to achieve what we like set out to do. Like we worked really hard on it and spent like we spent like a year just like rehearsing it, like before we recorded it, and just like fine tuning all of the aspects of the sound, stuff like that. But yeah, it's like a very technical death metal band. Yeah.
Okay. So Desolate, the first album on Season of Myth. God, I can't speak today. Desolate, the first album on Seasons of Mist. That's coming out July 16th. I think read,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What's it like trying to? There's a couple part question. First, how do you feel about it, and are you satisfied with the way it turned out? And second, how did the Season of Mist come about?
Yeah, well, like firstly, we took our time with the album. Like we weren't really in any sort of rush to like finish it or like do or like get it out there as soon as possible. We really just wanted to make the best possible album that we could do. Right. And like speaking for myself personally, like it was like the biggest reward in terms of this album was just like finishing it and listening back to it and be like really content with how it came out, like just really happy with it and just couldn't care less what anybody else would think about it because I was happy with it. So yeah, I'd say like we're super happy with how the result came out. But about Season of Mist, like our manager Ola Gerrit, he was it's a guy who was like an industry stable whom we've been in touch with for quite some time, and he basically sort of took reins when it came to like getting the album out there and discussing like the methods of the release and where to do it and stuff like that. Okay. He had really good experiences with Season of Mist, and we like two of the like Simon and Ragnar from Ophidian I are also in a band called Hellfro, which is signed to Season of Mist as well.
Actually, I spoke to them last year or the year before, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, nice. And they have like super good experiences with Season of Mist as well, and they were really excited about the album and just the band as a whole. So it just made total sense to just do it with them. Yeah, absolutely. So, and like awesome team.
Yeah, so, we do a lot of work with them, so I 100% agree. So when you're writing your albums, I mean, they're so technical. Do you write this album the song for the song's sake, or do you write the song for like how it's going to come across in the live setting? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. You could say that we don't really think at all about how it will result in like a live setting. At least not that I recall was that like part of our discussions about any of the aspects of the songs or the songwriting itself. We mainly just like when we approach the song, we try to do it like pretty differently from how we've done it in the past and how we do it with other bands, where like we maybe just started off with like a chord structure, like a chord idea, or even just a melody, like a guitar melody, as you can hear like all over the album, and sort of just like worked from that and tried to have everything sort of like, you know, grow from that particular just small minute detail. And like with that came like a better sense of just the songs as a whole, like because you're always looking at just the whole thing. Like you're not just working on this riff and have it like make sense to go into the next riff. Mm-hmm. Whereas that totally works and works for a lot of bands, but that also gets a bit tired like after a while, because, you know, you're just stacking riffs upon riffs upon riffs.
Do you find it difficult, with that being said then, do you find it difficult playing some of those songs live because there is so much going on?
You know, they're tough songs. They're difficult songs to play, right, for sure. But that was a big deal of how we wrote the album as well. It'd be like, if we started to write it like just and record a demo of it, That was initially how we like started with all of the songs. But then we went into like the rehearsal space and played it with Raki, the drummer, and had him like put his input and spin on it. So we like rehearsed every iteration of all of the songs and like fine-tuned the details like in the rehearsal space. Right. And then we came back to the computer and like made a new demo that we thought like makes sense. So we went like back and forth like that a number of times. And like as a result, like a lot of the sections like sort of like became just muscle memory essentially.
Right.
But they're still like really still they're tough songs to play for sure. Absolutely.
So do you guys have any professional training or educational training in music, or are you all self-taught?
We're all self-taught for the most part. I went on to some studies just later, like and did some stuff in like at like a college level, but that was just building upon what I had like accumulated myself in terms of music. But like we've also, I'd say like most of our like knowledge in terms of music just comes from like doing it a lot. Right. You know, we've all done like, even though we're like all relatively young and stuff, we've done like quite a lot of music like combined, you know. Right. So like we have like a lot of experience when it comes to like writing stuff and working on it.
Okay. So skipping to the lyrical content then, is there a message or something you want your fans to walk away from after listening to an Ophidian I record?
Not particularly. Like the music itself was the main focus during the whole making of the album, and that was like what we were just trying to make the best possible songs throughout. And the lyrics and the vocals like came about afterwards, basically. Sure, there were like sections where we figured like the vocals are supposed to do something like this or something like that, you know. But that really, we didn't like dwell onto those things until like later on. In terms of the lyrics themselves, like I wrote all of the lyrics, and they're mostly just like some personal experiences and stuff like that, and just use a lot of allegories and go into some, you know, some like fantastical elements, right? Basically, just through that journey. And in my mind, like a lot of those lyrics were set like on Iceland, basically, just on the highlands, like among the harsher parts of the nature and the terrain in Iceland, but still in like a parallel verse of sorts, where it's like where like a number of other aspects going on as well, if that makes sense.
I think the cold and the harshness up there, and even in those, I guess, northern Scandinavian countries like Finland, produces some of the best metal ever.
Yeah.
You guys have like a little niche up there, and I don't know if it's because it's dark all the time or what happens, but maybe there's something in the water. But you guys put out some, you know, not just Iceland, but you know, you've seen it. The whole Scandinavian thing is well known for all that metal. Yeah,
totally. That's right. It's like a very long-standing culture doing this sort of music, and like maybe like a lot of it just comes from like thinking back on how we made the album, because most of it was rehearsed and demoed at Raki's place, just at his house. He has his drum kit just set up in the living room, just no dinner table, just a drum kit.
That's all you need.
And and like that's sort of like rural suburban Reykjavik, basically. So like if you're stepping out of his house, you're just looking at just vast like grasses of green and snow if it's winter.
So inspiration.
Like but so like if we're thinking back on how everything basically works here, like during the winters, and the winters are pretty long and usually rather cold, then you just stay indoors.
Yeah.
And if you go outside, you're doing a particular activity, you know, maybe like if you're lucky, you're going on a snowmobile trip or something fun, you know, but usually you're just indoors and you're just maybe working on some stuff in music or just doing most of nothing, you know. It just maybe that's like a part of why it does well for Scandinavians, because they just stay inside.
It might be, because there's definitely some kind of magic I wish we could bottle and send to the rest of the world, you know, because Really good bands come out of there. What do you guys have plans for in support of the record? Are you doing any sort of touring or any sort of live streams or anything like that?
There's nothing like that planned right now, but you know, at the moment we can basically just work with what we have, like what's at our disposal right now. So like we've made like a lot of digital content, which we'll be releasing like to coincide with the release. And a lot of that sort of stuff, playthroughs, you know, some interviews, behind the scenes stuff of the making of the album, stuff like that. So, and hopefully, you know, as soon as it's possible, we'll be able to just get out there and do some tours. You know, we're like really excited to get the music out there, like physically, and get some like, some physical feedback.
It's a little bit different releasing the record, right? Because normally the cycle is you release it and then you hit the road, and now you're going to release it and have to do all your stuff online. It's kind of the music business has sort of had to redefine itself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very strange, and it's hard to know what to expect, you know. And it's also just, you know, I've had like a lot of people ask me like, so is it like going well with releases and stuff like that? And I'm like, probably.
It's weird.
I think so.
And a lot of bands and record labels are going to the non-traditional release. So they're doing like a single a month or a single every 6 weeks rather than do a full album. I don't know how I feel about that, but I know people like my son, that's their thing, right? They want to just one song and keeps their attention short. What are you guys planning on doing? Are you guys going to follow that model as well? Or are you going to just stick with the whole Desolate?
For this album, it's just going to be like the album
full release, a proper release.
Yeah. But like a lot, we're like really happy with how all of the songs came out. Like all of us feel like that most of the songs could just be singles in and of themselves.
Right.
So like we've discussed doing like videos for all of them and doing something for every song, like something proper. We could do that, which is sort of like a middle ground from just releasing the singles and the album. But yeah, that's something we've been discussing as well, because the market is definitely changing and how people are consuming music. But still, there's something really like satisfying about doing like an album.
I'm old school, and I agree. I want the album. I want to look at the artwork and find out where it was recorded and who played on what and all that shit.
Totally, I agree. Yeah. I'm that way as well.
My son, you know, he's 19. He does not feel that way. He just wants to go to Spotify or iTunes, download one song, and go about his business. Could care less about all the time, because you spend a lot of time sequencing, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole art in itself to make the album flow once you have your songs there. Totally. They're missing that totally now, because it's just one song on a playlist.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also like if you find a single, like a band that's releasing singles, and you listen to a single and you like it, and it's like, that's sick. I want to check this out. There's nothing else to check out.
No,
it's just this single. You know.
Yeah, I know.
So that's also pretty like.
Yep, I'm an old school fan. I want the vinyl, but I'll settle for digital full download or whatever. Anyway, before we go, did I miss anything you want to cover?
No, I think you told on all the points.
I went through my list. So I just want to make sure we had what you wanted to cover.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. Awesome. Man.
Good luck with the record, and hopefully we'll see you on this side of the world one day.
Awesome, man.
All right,
looking forward to it.
Thanks.
See you, man. Bye-bye.
Ever wonder what a punch from Elton John feels like?
Or how you'd cope with having turned down the chance to be in Nirvana?
Or what signal Keith Richards gives when he wants you to get the hell out of his hotel room?
Fans of Too Much Effing Perspective don't have to wonder, because they've heard these exact stories and a jillion others on our podcast. I'm Alex Hoffman, former tour manager for Radiohead.
And I'm musician and comedy writer Alan Keller. On the TMEP show, we get guests like Nancy Wilson from Heart, Jeremiah Freites from the Lumineers, and Modern Family's Julie Bowen to tell us things they may have only shared with their therapist, clergy, or a TMZ stringer.
So join us on Too Much Effing Perspective. That's EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.